ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Steve Barber, and joining me as always is one of my best friends in the world. It's Joylyn Davis.
Hey, everybody.
And I'm pretty sure by now everybody knows the news that we literally just heard about half an hour ago. You may have to announce it, dude.
Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon. Everybody, sure every wrestling fan knows who Scott Hall is. He passed away. It was WWE posted it on their Twitter account about 30 minutes ago. Sean Waltman posted on his Twitter account. For those who don't know, he had fallen earlier, he had fallen last week, broke his hip, had successful surgery to repair his hip. But a blood clot got loose yesterday and caused him to have 3 heart attacks in a short amount of time, all within the same day. And he was put on life support. And Kevin Nash had posted this morning that once the family had been gathered, that they were going to take him off life support. They did end up doing that. And I think it was about 5. His heart was still beating for probably about 5 hours after they took him off life support. But he did pass away. He was 63 years old.
Yep. And
I was telling Steve before we started recording, it's one of those things that this man, he absolutely had his demons. He always acknowledged that he had those demons. But he worked hard and got clean. He got clean and sober. He got healthy. He sought help with DDP. Honestly, DDP helped bring him back because, Scott Hall was going to end up being one of those wrestling tragedies that we see all too often in the headlines. But, he got clean. This wasn't his demons that got the best of him. This was just a freak occurrence from a routine surgery.
And I said right before we started recording, I said, I think I'm good. I guess I was wrong.
It's hard. Like I was telling Hope for me and you, for our generation, like for our younger listeners and younger viewers on YouTube, younger generations, they had The Rock, who had that charisma and that cool factor and everything. For us, Scott Hall was cool before we even knew what cool was.
Yeah.
When I first saw Scott Hall, in the AWA. He was tag team champions with Kurt Hennig, also known as Mr. Perfect. But to me, he looked like Tom Selleck from Magnum PI. He had the curly hair. He had the thick mustache and everything. When I saw those vignettes on WWE TV announcing the arrival of Razor Ramon, I'm like, at first I didn't realize it was the same guy, but I'm like, that's the coolest guy I've ever seen. It's like he just, even through the TV, it's just, you knew he had it.
Yeah.
Why he was never booked to be a world champion in WWE, I'll never know. But he had everything. I mean, he could work, he could talk. I mean, the fans were on their feet as soon as his music hit. He had charisma, that cool factor. Scott Hall was the man. And I don't think people realize exactly how much, I don't really want to say influence, but how much Scott Hall changed the game in pro wrestling. Because a lot of times you didn't see, when Scott Hall debuted in WWE, you didn't see a guy his size. Because Scott Hall was like 6'4", 6'5", a good 265, 270. But the guy could move.
Oh yeah.
He was quick. He was agile. He could work. He people tend to forget, the dude had technical skills. The dude could do everything. And you didn't see a guy like that most of the time. Most of the time, guys 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", 270, they're power guys who hardly ever left their feet. So, Scott Hall kind of broke that mold as far as that goes. And for me, I've always thought, as influential and game changing as the NWO was, there would be no NWO without Scott Hall.
Oh, absolutely not.
Scott Hall was the glue of that group. Scott Hall was the first one that showed up, on Nitro. And, everybody was hanging on every word he said. And every time he was on screen, it was just like, you could tell he made you believe what he was saying, and you could tell he was having the time of his life doing it.
And I actually, the first time I remember seeing Scott Hall was even before he went to the AWA, when he was part of the American Starship with Dan Spivey. He was Starship Coyote.
See, I'd heard of them,
yeah,
but I'd never seen him before. I'd read about Starship in the magazines, the wrestling magazines, but I'd never seen them in action.
Yeah, they were. Because you remember Dan Spivey. He's also a big jacked up dude.
Yeah,
and they came to the ring to Prince "Let's Go Crazy." And
well, that's a plus right
there.
Yeah, I'm a Prince guy, so
they came to the ring and they ripped off their shirts like Hulk Hogan. This was it was just a few months after Hogan had won the WWE or WWF, world title, and they tore the shirts and they were. I want to say their finishing moves, they both slapped full Nelsons on their opponents.
Oh, okay.
That was it. And then they were there just for a couple months, and I don't know what happened. I remember the last match I saw them together as a team, they went against the Zambui Express, and the Zambui Express beat them on a TV taping, which was, you didn't see, it was, even though it was kind of a squash match, but it was still considered at least two mid-card teams going at each other. And then they just kind of left, and then he went to the AWA. Dan Spivey came back a few months later just as Starship Eagle.
Oh, okay.
And he was doing like a drop kick off the second rope, and he was doing all sorts of stuff. But I remember reading in the magazines about Scott Hall going, to the AWA and becoming tag team champs with Kurt Hennig, and they were calling him Big Scott Hall, and then they called him Magnum Scott Hall. And I think that may have been because of the mustache, because that mustache, it was glorious.
Yeah, it's like I've heard some people say he looked like the Marlboro Man when he had the.
He did. He really did
and stuff. So yeah, I could see that.
And even though he never really properly headlined a WrestleMania, he was. Yeah, he never did.
He didn't. He should have, but he didn't.
But he was still in one of the greatest WrestleMania matches ever.
Oh yeah,
yeah, him and Shawn, the ladder match.
Also, one of the greatest SummerSlam matches too, because him and Shawn did the rematch in the ladder match. I think it was SummerSlam 90. Was it 95?
Yes, I believe so. Is it 95 or 96?
Well,
oh no, 95, because 96 is when Shawn won the world title.
Yeah. So SummerSlam 95. If you haven't seen that match, go watch that match, because that match they had. For some reason, Vince McMahon said that they couldn't use the ladder as a weapon. So they had to do a ladder match and work around not being able to use the ladder as a weapon. And they pulled it off. And I didn't even, the match is so good, you don't even realize that they don't use it as a weapon. I didn't realize it until like after I'd found that out and rewatched the match. And then I noticed that, there were spots where it's like you would usually use that ladder as a weapon, and they didn't do it because the boss had said no.
Right.
I don't know why he said no, but
I remember reading there was something going on that made Vince kind of skittish to use the ladder as a weapon. And it wasn't because he was being, a jerk. I mean, there actually was some kind of legit reason, like maybe they were coming down on them for like violence and things like that.
Could have been.
I'd have to look it up. but um, but yeah, and just think about it. He never won a world title. He should have, considered one of the greatest to never hold a world title, even though
Yeah.
he didn't need it to get over.
Oh no, he was
But
over. I mean, there honestly, there were a lot of times, especially during the NWO's heyday when they were just on top of the world. And Scott Hall was the most over guy in that group.
mhm.
I mean, and that's saying something because you had Nash, Hogan. I mean, you had Scott Steiner because everybody was loving the Big Papa Pump gimmick when it first started. But Scott Hall was always the most over guy in that group. All he had to do was say, "Hey yo," and
Hey,
he
yo,
he had him.
and he had to. I know this sounds weird, but I don't think you could get away with having his character now because he wasn't Cuban,
No,
but
he
but
wasn't
he
Cuban.
but he was playing a Cuban.
And the thing is, nobody thought anything about it.
No,
Nobody thought it's like, here's this white guy. Because I mean, because the Razor Ramon character was inspired by Scarface.
yeah,
That was Scott Hall's favorite movie, and somebody I saw it said one time that he had seen Scarface over 150 times. It was
mm.
like his absolute favorite movie. And I mean, I love that movie, and I've seen it a lot, but 152 times.
I
Um,
I've seen it. I don't think I can get past the chainsaw scene again.
but and the thing is, Vince McMahon had never seen Scarface, so he did not get the reference. He was just going off of Scott Hall's performance when he performed the gimmick in the office to Vince, and Vince loved it and said, "Go with it." And Scott got away with one because it's like no other promoter would have been like, "Oh, this is based off Scarface." See, so Scott didn't tell him what it was. He found, it basically found out that Vince had never seen it, so it's just like, well, I'm gonna go ahead and try,
Yep.
and it worked, and nobody ever thought a word. It was just he was that cool, and he was that good at
Mm-hmm.
the gimmick that he made it work. And I don't think anybody could make that kind of gimmick work now. I agree with you
No,
100%
I
on that.
mean, yeah, they look and go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Standards of practices want to talk to you.
But the thing is, it's like I feel like over time, it's like that was just Scott Hall because
Yeah,
even when he went to WCW,
he was still doing the same thing.
he was still doing the same thing. He went to ECW, he was still doing the same thing. Comes back to WWE, he's still doing the same thing. I think after a while, it was just Scott Hall turned up to 11.
Yeah, and because even when he was the Diamond Stud, he didn't put on that accent,
No.
did he? Yeah,
Uh-uh.
same moves and everything else, because that's where
Yeah.
it was what he called the Diamond Exchange, which later
Yes.
became the
Yes.
Razor's Edge.
Yep.
Oh, but
And so many people have adopted the Razor's Edge um, as a finisher. Sheamus used to use it. It was called the White Cross.
that doesn't sound good either.
No, but I mean it works for Sheamus because I mean he's literally white as a sheet. So
He
I mean
is.
he's as white as that door.
That dude is so white. He's so white. He's clear.
Yeah. Bless her heart, my daughter Savannah's that way, and we tell her that all the time. Yeah. She doesn't tan; she just burns, and then it peels, and then she's still just bright white underneath.
Mm.
But yeah, Damian Priest does a version of it. Ethan Page does a version of it. I also found out today on Twitter that Ethan Page and Nyla Rose incorporate part of Razor Ramon's entrance, like some of the mannerisms when they're walking through the tunnel to come out onto the stage on AEW.
Really?
I never realized that, so now I got to pay a little closer attention. But Ethan Page put on Twitter today that Razor Ramon was like was his favorite wrestler growing up because that was Ethan's dad's favorite wrestler, and Ethan's dad even called him Chico as a nickname. And he said we absolutely loved Razor Ramon.
Oh, and this past week, has been such a good high for us as the podcast
Hmm.
hosts, and because just a week ago today is when we had one of Scott Hall's best friends,
Yep.
Marcus Bagwell, Buff Bagwell, on, and I finally got to meet him in person this past Saturday, along with Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner. Now,
Awesome.
and I actually did get to talk to Buff for a little bit. Speaking of which, I have something for you. This is for you.
Awesome.
Yeah, it does not. If you look, it does not
That's
say to Steve. It says to Dwaylen.
awesome. I,
Yep. So I made sure I
I'll
got that.
definitely be framing that and putting that on my wall.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to get it to where it doesn't get anything on it. So,
Yeah.
and while we were there, my son, and I'm not really one for autographs, but yeah, my son got this one.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the only person who he really knew
Uh-huh.
before we went
Yeah.
there. And he's like, Dad, I don't even know who these guys are. And then he started Googling them while we were there. And he's looking, he's like, oh my God, these guys are all famous. I'm like,
Yeah.
told you. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was at the Big Time Wrestling Ohio they call it the family reunion, partly because Bobby Fulton's the one who runs it, and
Mhm.
his brother and his son were both there, and they were uh, they they were raising money for something. I don't know what exactly, but I do know like the band boosters for that high school
Oh,
we were
okay.
at. Yeah, Uniota High School, home of the Sherman Tanks. That's why I put that one picture. I was like, okay, I was like, that's different for a high school mascot. But then my son actually read um, the the land where the high school is located used to be part of an army base way back in the day and named after Sherman.
Oh, okay.
So that's why they're the Sherman tanks.
Hmm.
I was like, well, it could be worse, I guess. Could like there's high schools near us named the Purples
Yeah.
and the Maroons. So,
Yep.
and their mascot is Grimace. So, you know, um, yeah, because it was the Bowling Green Purples, the Madisonville Maroons.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I'm not afraid of you. And
Yeah. It's like, no, you don't scare me.
see, we were the Colonels. That's something to
Yeah.
watch out for. So, but anyway, so yeah, it was. We had a really good time, and when the matches first started, before they even started, they had Kurt Angle come out. Now they were playing his music from WWE.
Okay.
Of course, the whole crowd was, "You suck."
Hmm.
I mean, and you got to think, I mean, for him, he gets into that, and they just do it during that first thing, and then they, so,
And
um,
that may be it may be an issue of because the Patriot originally used that theme during his short stint in WWE, and then they gave it to Kurt when he got there, but that could have just been stock music because that's how AEW wound up being able to use the Hardy Boys theme because it wasn't actually owned by WWE;
right.
it was just stock music.
Um, our buddy Chris, Big Fat, he actually just texted me. And he said Scott
Mhm.
Hall's passed away.
Yeah.
So he had actually texted me earlier today. Let me tell him. So we found out right before we uh, found out right before we started recording. Uh, so Chris, if you're watching this, sorry, dude.
Yeah.
Because I was going to text. I told him earlier today I was going to text him if he found out anything. But then, like I said, it happened.
Right before we started the show. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, obviously, I thought I was ready to record, but then as soon as I had to say the words,
Yeah.
nope. So, and if anybody knows me, I'm actually a very emotional person. So Dwaylen's not. He's just he's made of ice. He really is. So, but obviously, it's not that Dwaylen doesn't care. Obviously, it's just my wife would say, I'm like, okay, I'm not as bad as Ric Flair. That dude cries at everything, but I mean, she'll tell you I'm a cry. I cry at movies, things like that. But this right here, I mean, even though didn't know him, but it was weird because I had just literally just met his best
Yeah.
friends.
And I mean, we
So,
grew up watching the guy. I
yeah,
mean, he was somebody that we literally, you know, grew up with, our entire childhood and into
yeah,
adulthood. We were Razor Ramon, Scott Hall fans, whichever he was going
Yeah,
by at the time.
I knew him as Starship Cody, and then Big Scott Hall or Magnum Scott Hall, or just Scott Hall, and then
Yeah.
the Diamond Stud, and then Razor
Yep.
Ramon, and then back to Scott Hall again. So
Yep.
didn't know about his demons until a lot later. Until actually, I think it was when the whole Outsiders thing started. Because actually, it was right. It was before that because he had failed a drug test,
Yes.
and that's what they used as their what do you call it? Their I'm looking for a word, justification for
Yeah.
suspending him, not letting him have a WrestleMania match in '96.
Yeah.
Um,
And then like I always hated that WCW used his personal issues
yeah,
as a storyline. Like they would have him come down to the ring carrying,
with the cup.
with the cup and everything, and he was spending more time trying to get a drink than he was wrestling the match. And I always thought that was disgusting. It's like y'all know this man has an issue with alcohol and what other substances he may have an issue with, and you're really going to exploit that for some TV ratings.
Who did it first? Because them or WWF with Hawk, because they were all happening right about the same time.
It was right around the same time, yeah, because Vince.
They're all tasteless, but
yeah, I don't know who did it first, but yeah, WWE absolutely exploited Hawk's demons too, and that's just a tacky thing. As you know, as a person has had issues with alcohol in the past.
Yep, same here.
That is not something that I want someone else to exploit. It's like, and I just thought that was always tasteless. I always thought Scott deserved better from the people that he worked for. I did see on What Culture, I was watching their news. They had two different shows. They did one this morning just about Scott Hall, his situation, and they were like, Adam Wilborn said that he feels like Scott Hall is the greatest wrestler to never be a world champion. For me, he's my number two, because for me, Arn is always going to be the greatest wrestler that's never been a world champion. But Scott Hall's right there. I mean, it's like 1A and 1B. It's like, because Scott Hall should have been a multiple-time world champion in multiple promotions. And there's no reason he shouldn't have been WWF champion. I get why he never became WCW champion his demons did get really bad, and they probably looked at it like, we can't rightfully make him the face of the company if he's having these issues. But I'm sure there was some politicking. I'm sure Hogan wasn't getting out the way.
Probably not. I mean,
so that Scott Hall could be the champion. I think if he'd have been in ECW during its heyday, they'd have Paul Heyman was smart enough. He'd have put the belt on it.
Oh yeah, and I think, to me, this is even wilder. Scott Hall was never in a Royal Rumble.
No, he wasn't. But I don't know.
Razor Ramon was.
Yeah, but
the fake
Razor. Yeah,
Rick Bogner.
Yeah, fake Razor was in the Rumble, but yeah, Scott Hall was never in it, because Scott Hall was always either competing for the Intercontinental title or the World title.
Yeah. And there was one of the Rumbles, and this had to have been probably 96. He did go in the ring during the Rumble match because he was chasing Sean Waltman.
Yes, because Waltman had turned on him, caused him to lose the Intercontinental title. Yeah. And so then he was chasing after Waltman, so he, to get his receipt.
Yeah, I mean, he took off after, because Waltman was looking off. He took off. Here comes Scott. Yeah. So he was in the ring, but he just wasn't an entrant.
Yeah.
And that to me was like the even wider things. Like, man, he was there so many times, and even during times where they had guys wrestle a match and then enter the Rumble later. Yeah. But he just never did. So,
but look at it. He was a 4-time Intercontinental champion, which during that time, nobody had held the Intercontinental title that much at that point in time.
Right.
So he was a 4-time Intercontinental champion. I can't even recall how many times him and Kevin Nash won the WCW World Tag Team Championships. Probably 5 or 6 at least. Plus, he was the World Television Champion. Plus, he was the United States Heavyweight Champion. I mean, he held every belt there was to hold except for the World Heavyweight title.
And I want to say one of the times he won the Intercontinental title, he won it from Kevin Nash.
He did. Yep.
Yep.
He did, because Nash had beaten. This is when they had that suspension thing. When they had the ladder match at WrestleMania 10, Shawn had been suspended. They said the storyline was that Shawn had gotten suspended for non-defense of the title for the 30-day, the 30-day title defense, but actually he got popped for a wellness violation. They just didn't call it that then. He got suspended. He comes back. They've got the 2 belts. Scott Hall wins. Then he's feuding with Shawn and Diesel. Diesel ends up beating him, and then he ends up beating Diesel because Shawn went for the super kick. Razor moved. He hit Diesel, and Razor pinned him. But yeah, he's beating Kevin Nash for it. Trying to think. He won it in the finals of a tournament. Trying to think. I know Goldust beat him for it, but I can't remember if he beat Goldust back for it. I think he beat Jeff Jarrett once for it. So
yep, because I know Jeff Jarrett held it for a bit too.
Yep.
But yeah, eventually we are going to probably have to move on before we start.
But I mean, we could talk this whole show about
absolutely
the influence of Scott Hall. I mean, even from like salaries, Kevin Nash alluded to that in his post on Instagram, that these big paydays that guys are getting now in professional wrestling would not have been possible, whether you liked them or hated them, how they went about it. But they caused the pay scale to change for not just themselves, but for everybody that came after them. That's why guys could make, $2-3 million a year now, in pro wrestling off of just working for one promotion, because it used to be you had to work multiple dates for multiple promotions to really make a living if you weren't at the very top of the card in a particular promotion.
Right.
And they, and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, they knew their worth and they weren't taking less. So they paved that financial path for everybody that came after them.
But there was something else that happened Friday night, and this is actually something we were actually going to talk about probably at the beginning of the show.
Yep.
And it's hard to think that something as horrible as getting a broken neck during a match would be overshadowed by anything. However, I think losing Scott Hall, I mean, did, but in case anybody didn't know, Big E Langston broke his neck legitimately during a match Friday night.
Yep.
And you've seen the footage.
Yeah.
I mean, and Rich Holland, I mean, God bless him. I mean, it obviously was not on purpose.
No, and he went to the hospital and saw him that night after the show was over,
which is the right thing
exactly
to do.
Which is the right thing to do. And he said Big E was in good spirits, didn't blame him for it. I mean, stuff happens, but I could tell instantly from the way he landed and then the way his body reacted when he
crumbled. I mean,
but you could see where it was like his head, he was like, something's wrong.
Yeah. And do you remember when we were talking to Buff just a week ago when he was talking about when he did not break his neck, he severely bruised
his spinal cord,
but he was talking about the reason why you took your head forward is because you have a lot of movement going forward, you don't going backwards. And of course that's what happened to Buff. His head went backwards. But with Big E, of course, I mean, his head was still kind of tucked, and
it was tucked, but he still came down.
Came down.
And you got to think, Big E's like 275.
of
of
muscle,
at muscle.
nothing
All,
but muscle.
yeah, all that weight. Now he's got a great big neck, which thankfully probably saved him from getting injured worse. But yeah, all that weight coming down on his neck. I think he broke two vertebrae. I think it's
Yep.
C3 and C6. Am I right?
I'd have to look.
I saw it somewhere, and I think those are the right ones. If I'm wrong, guys, let me know. But they said it's going to be, he's going to be out several months, for that to
Miss
heal.
WrestleMania, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, because it was going to be Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Pete Dunne. I can't call him Butch. That's just dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pete Dunne. I feel like Vince McMahon somebody has told him that, oh, they have Peaky Blinders on Netflix. You should watch it. And he saw a bunch of, he's watched a bunch of British crime shows and was like, oh, I need a stable that looks like that. Because that's what they're doing with these
Lord.
guys. And but it was supposed to be the three of them against all three members of the New Day was going to be the WrestleMania match. But, obviously Big E's not going to be able to make it. They said it's going to be several months before they can see, because they said with those kind of breaks that, they just don't know. I mean, there's been people that have come back from it. There's been people that have never been able to compete again. So
right.
We just don't know. But
yeah.
Our wishes are with Big E.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
I saw him. I've seen him all over TikTok, and he's been in great spirits, and
he's keeping a very positive attitude. I mean,
he was more concerned about the fans being upset than, that was his concern. That was his main concern. I mean, he's in the hospital with a neck brace on, letting people know he can move his fingers and everything. But he did.
And he had the halo on, didn't he? They didn't have the halo. Okay.
He just had that great big hard plastic neck brace on that comes up on your chin and everything.
Oh, I've had to put those on. Those suck.
Yeah,
they're for a reason, but still.
My brother had to have one of those on one time. He got into a car wreck and had to wear that for a little while.
That's why I had to wear one too. Car wreck when I was like in 6th grade, but
yeah, just our thoughts and prayers are with Big E. Also, our thoughts and prayers are with the family and friends. Scott Hall. It's just been a rough week in pro wrestling.
Yeah, and I mean, now it hasn't been all negative.
Yeah,
like I said, we were very fortunate to interview Buff Bagwell last Monday, and then 2 days after that, we were able to interview Wildcat Chris Harris.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had just an absolute blast with both interviews. And then I got to meet Buff Bagwell, and I will finally actually formally introduce myself to Chris Harris, because I've seen him so many times at shows. And I got thinking, he said, oh, have you been to the shows? I'm like, dude, you actually looked right at me before. We've kind of nodded. Yeah. Then again, I got to thinking, I think I look a lot different actually at the shows, because normally I'll go ahead and, I mean, you've probably seen pictures, maybe, but I have two things on that I don't have on right now. One, these. Yeah, so I think I may look a little different.
Yeah.
But I'm still wearing the armchair booking shirt.
Right.
But then again, he's also so focused on the matches.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and, all right, I'm not wearing my hat while I'm recording. Not wearing these either, because I mostly wear these when I've gotten to the point now I have to use them more so I can actually see the ring, so it's not as blurry.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, he was a super great guy, and the one part he actually made me laugh pretty hard, because I said, I'm not going to be able to watch the Ludlow show this time because I'm going to be in Chillicothe. I said, I kind of feel like I'm cheating on y'all. He said, well, you are.
Yeah, he's like, you are. So, you are.
Yeah, you are. But I could tell you 3 other people who were also at Chillicothe, 2 of which they were wrestling each other. Big Mama.
Yeah.
Riley Matthews.
Yep.
And then Dakota Wolf was also up there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to get him to come on the podcast. Then he's like, I'm kind of shy. I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah. He said, I have a hard time talking. He said, I could get out there and perform. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm fine. He said, but when it comes to talking And Riley was trying to tell him, she's like, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. And I was like, yeah. I said, I was her very first interview. I said, and I said she did fine, So, but yeah, Riley. I know she's actually posted more about it than Big Mama.
Hmm.
Uh, even though Big Mama, she's also posted about it. Um, and the pictures that, you saw Riley. She actually tagged me in the
Yeah.
picture that she
Yep.
posted because I was the one who took that particular picture.
Yeah.
Another Big Mama picture she posted, not the one where it's obvious like it's backstage, but the other one where she's beside the ring. I'm
Hmm.
also the person who took that picture. And I sent it
Oh,
to
okay. Cool.
you.
Yeah, they
So
said there was 3,000 people there.
I knew there was a lot. I didn't realize there was that many.
Yeah,
But
Riley. I saw on Riley's. I think it was her Instagram post this morning. She had posted
yeah,
something about it, and she said, "I just performed in front of 3,000 people."
all that place was packed. I thought there was going to be a fight right in front of us with some of the fans.
Really?
I didn't get to see as much as the Scott Steiner, um, Andrew Anderson. I had no idea who he was. By the way, I had to actually look him up.
Yeah,
He's
I'm
he's a podcast partner with Kevin Sullivan.
okay. Okay.
So, but he actually told me to contact him to try to get them on the podcast. But that's another story. Um,
Okay.
but it was Steiner and this guy Adrian, he's also kind of a big jacked up dude. And I couldn't see as much of the match because this one dude, I'll just go ahead and flat it. This one Billy Bob was just kind of standing there in front of everybody,
And wouldn't get out of the
wouldn't
way.
get out of the way. And the girl that was with them, she was like she was like arguing with the people right behind her. They're like, y'all need to sit down
Sit
because you're
down. Yeah.
blocking everybody behind
Yeah.
you. And then the match ended, and it ended with the Steiner recliner, but I could barely see it. That's why I don't really have a lot of pictures of that one because they were, and I found out that I should have just got like the bleacher seats
Hmm.
because getting on the floor, I couldn't see hardly anything. Couldn't see as
Oh.
much. Bleacher seats would have been a lot better view,
Mm.
So, but lesson learned. I mean, next time I go, I mean, it was in a high school gym.
Yeah.
Next time I'll just get because you're not going to get, it's not like you're going to be in the nosebleeds,
Right.
So unless you're ringside, go up high,
Yeah.
found that out the hard way. But actually, what I was saying before about Kevin Nash, um, there was a guy who, Kurt Angle came out, and then Kevin Nash came out, and then Kurt Angle just kind of stood there around while they were talking about this. But this is the first time I've ever seen a wrestling event start with a prayer, and now they did do the national anthem, which I'm used to. That's like anything
Yeah.
now, but Bobby Fulton, though, um, it shouldn't have surprised me about them doing a prayer because Bobby Fulton, I don't know if you know, he's actually born again Christian, and so that's why he had a
Okay.
pastor come out and do the prayer. It's like okay, but the guy they were presenting him something. It was a guy they were calling him Big John, and but they kept advertising him as Big John, who was on the Bret Michaels show, like Rock of Love.
Okay.
And I'm like, I had no idea, but I was like, okay, this seems kind of weird to have this guy mixed in with a whole bunch of wrestlers. Should have
Hmm.
realized, by the way, this guy's also a wrestler. That's
Oh, okay.
why,
There you go.
yeah, but he's also a former Marine.
Oh, okay.
So, and he was in Desert Storm. He was in some other places. I mean, he's done some stuff when he was in the Marines. But they had Kevin Nash come out and present him with this plaque, and what they were waiting, to get because they didn't have the plaque ready. Kevin Nash was like, I just say say stuff about and but he was actually kind of almost doing a comedy bit. Now he did do some things. I'm like, dude, you got kids out here in the audience, really? But can't say what he said because we're family friendly. But yeah,
Right.
but then people were making some political stuff. They were just saying it. And Kevin Nash, he was just kind of shaking his head and he said a couple things back. And I'm like, y'all, and I was like, if y'all must not follow him on Twitter because
I was gonna say, yeah.
he he leans one way, but after that, and then they surprised Kevin Nash because he was presenting the guy Big John with a plaque for like his military service.
Hmm.
They turned around and gave Kevin Nash one too. And he didn't know that they were going to do that because a lot of people are Kevin Nash was in the Army.
Yeah.
And that actually kind of shook him a little bit because then he started talking about, I mean, and of course, one of the big things right now in the news is Ukraine. And then he was talking about, he said he knows despite our differences, if anything, if we were to ever get attacked, we would all come together. Makes sense,
Yeah.
And it was actually kind of emotional. I mean, for him to say that. And then all of a sudden, of course, today he loses his best friend. So
Right.
yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, my heart definitely goes after Kevin Nash. I mean,
Yeah.
because yeah, because I mean, he seemed like a kind of a pretty genuine guy and pretty tall guy. And I could post a picture and show, like me standing next to him. I'm 6'1", and I'm like looking up at him, before we took the picture, but yeah, so the event itself, I mean, the matches, were decent enough. Like I said, I couldn't see as like I'd like to. I'm like, I should have just went and sat in the bleachers, so I got rows 4 through 8. I'm getting these. No, I should have just went and sat in the bleachers. I would have got a lot better shot. But I knew Big Mama was going to be wrestling, but then somebody had said Amber Nova didn't show up, and I was like, well, who's she going to be? Never mind. Riley's here. And they put on a pretty good match. I mean, they've wrestled each other before, so they have great chemistry. And I don't have it with me. That was actually another souvenir. I ended up buying a Big Mama like tote bag,
Did you?
like the kind of get like an Aldi.
Yeah.
Because she actually told me, she's like, yeah, we use them at Aldi sometimes, because we were Leighton and I were trying to carry around like the Funko Pops. He bought another New Day set of Funko Pops. Except for these don't have the gold pants, they have like the blue-ish.
Oh, okay.
Because he said, yeah, you can't find these anywhere. Because I'm looking, going, you have the 2 sets of like. By the way, if they ever fall on the floor, don't step on them, because them stupid unicorn horns, they hurt. Them things are sharp. But she's like, you need to buy one of my bags. I'm like, you know what? Here. How much is it? $5. All right. So,
like, here you go.
Yeah. But I bought 2 other things while I was there, and one of them I was going to wear at the beginning of the show. However, I even told Joelle, I said, considering the circumstances, I think it'd be inappropriate. But that's right.
The Patriot.
Patriot. Now, this came in a loot box. Where is the box? I just had the box. I just had the box. It was literally sitting right here. And oh well, I actually put it on the Twitter. Actually, I tag it on Facebook too. But yeah, like Wrestling Loot Box, and they're doing a promotion, and I'll give this to you, because I don't know. Well, yeah, go ahead. I'll give you some free advertising for once.
Cool.
Yeah, promo code Wrestle, and you get the first box. They do a monthly thing. The first box 20% off. Okay, I gotta take the stung off. Yeah, because I was putting it on yesterday just to annoy my wife, because that's just fun to do.
Yeah.
And she's like, I cannot take you seriously with that thing on. But the other thing which I bought,
there it is.
The 10 pounds of gold.
Yep, that's the one you've always wanted.
It is. I mean, we've even talked about it, like our favorite belts, and
yep.
Yeah, it's got the plates on there. The Canadian flag that was before the maple leaf.
Yep.
And one of the other things that I managed to get on it was I got the autograph of Wildfire Tommy Rich.
Awesome.
And yeah, he was, super nice. And he was right beside Ricky Steamboat. Steamboat was real nice. And really, I don't think there was anybody there who I would consider to be not nice.
Did you talk to Greg Valentine?
I didn't, and I kind of felt bad, but I mean, he was just kind of sitting over there, just kind of by himself, and it kind of reminded me of the movie The Wrestler. Remember the scene where they're doing like the meet and greet, and there's like not a whole lot of fans there, and they're just kind of sitting there.
Yeah.
I mean, there was people at his table when I first got there. It's just there just wasn't a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then I did feel bad, because I feel weird going and talking to somebody, but then I actually not, get an autograph, because I mean, you had to pay for like everything if you wanted to.
Right.
Now I did shake Barry Windham's hand, you know,
Awesome.
um, and I did talk to Bobby Fulton just for a couple minutes. Um, Now he was kind of busy because he was running all of it,
Hmm.
so I could tell he was kind of in a don't bother me too much mood in a way because he was
Yeah.
kind of stressed out. But I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask him, how do you know Dale Fry?
Yeah.
And because Dale Sunshine Fry, look him up, world champion kickboxer, and he lived. I actually looked this up last night when I was because Big Mama had actually uh, asked me. She's like, "Tell me how they know each other." She's like, "I'm kind of curious now." Um, and it turns out he used to referee some of his matches down in North Carolina.
Cool.
I'm like, Dale Fry, he is a world champion kickboxer. He has been the stunt coordinator on a lot of movies, including like the
Hmm.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. Um, he was in the first movie Cyborg. He was one of the bad guys.
Okay.
He was a guy. He only had like one line the whole movie, but he was one of the bad guys in Cyborg. Um, he did the stunt coordination. I'm trying to figure. Well, I guess it was like fight coordination for the movie called Bastard Out of Carolina,
Okay.
which was not a real good movie. I mean, it's kind of a disturbing movie to be honest with you. If you ever watch it, it's like, oh, it's not. It's um, I'm almost afraid to say about what the movie's about because it's one
Oh,
of the things that can get you flagged on YouTube.
gotcha.
But
Okay.
there's some abuse going on. I just
Mm,
yeah.
gotcha.
Um, and but he's done all that, and he's everybody there in that area knows him. Dale Sunshine Fry, and he used to live 6/10 of a mile away from me,
Hmm.
and that's it because I looked. I said, okay, this was my address there, and I had to kind of pinpoint where his house was, and and his house is on Sunshine Boulevard, which is it's a dirt road, but it's Sunshine Boulevard. At least it used to be a dirt road. It probably still is. I mean, and it's an 11-minute walk. I'm like, okay, that explains why one day he stopped by my house and was just talking to my mom because I've always joked, said he was going to ask my mom out, you know. But yeah, so I could have had a world champion
Yeah.
kickboxer, as a stepdad.
Yep. Yeah.
But no, instead I had a Green Beret as my stepdad. So who's going to win that fight? I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
that'd be a tough one because you've met my stepdad. I mean,
Hmm.
he's not a real big guy, but I mean, he wasn't one to
He's
trifle with.
he's not a real big guy, but he's a big guy.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Yeah.
So, um, but, but yeah, so it just asked him about that, and I said, yeah, I guess, yeah, go ahead, shoot, go ahead, no strange questions, and you know, um, but it took me a second. I'm like, I said, are you Bobby Fulton? All day long, because I'm used to the pictures of Bobby Fulton, and seeing the videos where he's got kind of the mullet,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, kind of the baby face, and yeah, he doesn't have that anymore.
Mm, okay.
But he's also been through a lot. He's had cancer, and he's still out there promoting, and
Hmm.
you know, um, and put on a good show the other night. And I'm not even. I told you what Mr. Hughes said, and I'm not going to repeat it
Yeah. Yeah.
because I was like, dude, what Mr. Hughes just said. Then he said it again. Then he said something else, and then later on he said something else. I'm like, wow. But then it was hard to recognize him as Mr. I don't ever remember him even talking before.
I don't either. He usually just stood there like staring a hole in people, but I
Yeah,
never saw him. I don't remember him ever talking.
with the
And he
shades
always had,
on.
yeah, he always had the shades on.
But he had the shades. He also had the Undertaker's urn.
I
Um,
saw that in the picture.
yep. And wrestles like wearing like a button-up shirt.
Yeah,
Like
button up shirt and dress slacks.
I'm like,
Yeah,
I
he
could,
always he's always wrestled in that.
I could see the slacks because they are really comfortable. You would think.
Hmm.
The shirt though,
Yeah.
I mean, I would be, you'd have to get it a couple sizes too big.
Hmm.
Yeah, here we are, like sound like fashion police again.
And then I remember in like WCW, he'd wear suspenders with it,
Yeah,
like IRS. He'd have suspenders on.
or like Big Bubba.
Yeah, yeah. Big Bubba Rogers. Yep.
Yep, old Ray Trailer, who was also one of those legitimately um, tough people.
Yeah.
Because I've heard some stories. I heard Jim Cornette tell a couple stories about Bubba. One was when they got out of a cab, and they were going in the back of the arena. There were some fans out there.
Hmm.
Well, the cab driver, when he shut the door, Bubba's hand was still in the frame, and he
Yeah.
shut the door on his hand.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, brother. Hey, brother." He's like, "Oh." He's like, that's all he did was just, "Hey, brother." He said they got inside the arena, and as soon as the door shut, he was like, "Ah, mother." He's like, "Why didn't you act like that?" He's like, "Because I couldn't let the fans see me act,
Right. Yeah.
And he said another time was, and I remember this one. Well, I didn't know the whole story, but I remember when this happened. Um, Bubba, he may not have even started wrestling yet,
Hmm.
as Bubba. He'd had matches as, Ray Traylor before,
Yeah.
but he was the bigger than life, just tougher than nails bodyguard.
Yep.
And somebody, I think it was Dusty, came in and hit him with a chair, and the chair just splintered. Wooden chair.
Yeah.
Well, Cornette was telling the story. I think it was on Austin's podcast. He said that they had told somebody, Klondike Bill, the guy you always hear about. They told him, okay, we're going to do the spot. We're going to hit Bubba with the chair. Make sure we, give him the chair so it breaks. Okay.
Right.
And so after they got done, they went to like, man, you did a really good job with that. He went, oh crap, I forgot to gimmick it. He hit him so hard, I mean, and I remember he had the
he had the
hat and the
fedora on. Yeah.
Yep, the fedora. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name of it. They had the fedora, and he had, the glasses, and he just took the hat the rest of the way off, and took the glasses the rest of the way off, and but the chair just splintered just from how hard he hit him.
Uh-huh.
He's like, I forgot to give me it. So, but yeah, some of the other people who were there, like some of my son. I mean, he was so happy to meet Kurt Angle, and we got that given box. I talked to Road Dogg, just for a couple minutes, and it was actually, oddly enough, it was not even about wrestling. It was like you're a Marine, thank you for your service. And he saw my hat, the hat that I'm always wearing. And he's like, oh, thank you for yours. And we just got swapped. I said, yeah. I said, 20 years Air Force. He's like, oh, 20 years. He said, yeah, definitely. Thank you for your service. I'm like, yeah. I didn't get a chance to talk to Billy Gunn. That dude, I've heard stories about how big he is.
He's massive. He is in, I mean, he is, he's in his, early to mid 50s.
Yeah.
And he is in phenomenal shape. And he still wrestles on
he just won a title. Yeah. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't know what title it was, but it was in Lexington.
Yeah.
But
he still wrestles on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing, not to get off on a tangent, but it's like when you bring in like a Goldberg, he's 50, I think 53 years old. But you got Billy Gunn over here who is working for AEW, not only an on-screen talent, but behind the scenes as well. He's a coach, helping put over younger talent and things like that. To me, in much better shape than Bill Goldberg.
Yeah.
And works a semi-regular schedule. And that if you're wrestling at that age, that's what you should be doing. And it's awesome that Billy's still winning titles with, regional promotions and stuff, but like he's not taking a spot.
No, he's not.
For somebody in AEW to move up. He's helping people move up.
Right. Bill Goldberg's not coaching anybody. Bill Goldberg's coming in, wrestling like 2 or 3 matches, and in 3 months.
Getting a fat check and then going home for a year.
Yeah. Sometimes longer.
Yeah, sometimes longer, sometimes 2 or 3 years, and then he'll decide, oh, well, I got to add a new wing to my house, so let me go and
don't get me wrong, Bill Goldberg, I mean, he is in good shape.
Yeah, he's in good shape for a guy his age, but I just think Billy Gunn's in better shape.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just massive, and I mean, you don't see a lot of guys that are like 52, 53 years old just chiseled out of stone like Billy Gunn is.
And he is about 6'5".
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I
I
had
think
read that,
6'5", 6'6", something
yeah,
like
I
that.
mean, and I had read that, yeah, he was it's every bit the size of Hulk Hogan,
Yeah.
but was never advertised as such.
Yep. They always down. Now, Jim Ross would always say on commentary how big Billy Gunn was. He would
Mm-hmm.
always say, 6'5", 6'6", athletic. Jim Ross always said that Billy Gunn had all the tools.
Mm-hmm.
They just, for one reason or another, they just didn't push him. They,
I did like the Smoking Guns team.
yeah, they were a pretty good team.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was like, I was like, all right, that's kind of a cool gimmick, and of course, Bart Gunn, his career will never ever, because of
Yeah,
um
he got sent. He
the
got
brawl for
punished.
all.
He got punished for doing what they told him to do.
Yeah,
Go out there and have a legitimate shoot fight with somebody. They weren't expecting him to knock Dr. Death out because they had
yeah,
all these plans for Dr. Death to be the
and
next.
but he warned them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
he's
told them what he could do.
yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, it'll be okay." And it's like, if you're not going to script this and you're going to let them just go out there and shoot, the guy's already told you that he can
Look,
throw hands.
yeah, look, I'm going to win this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And he won it. So then they put him in the ring with Butterbean, knowing
yeah,
what was going to happen to him.
uh,
And he gets knocked out in 15 seconds.
somebody it was either yesterday or today was actually asking me. I think it was actually maybe today because we were talking about Tyson and how quick his hands were,
Mm-hmm.
and how Tyson actually changed boxing because, usually the heavyweights weren't as quick as Tyson.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I was like, yeah, y'all don't get it. I mean, if you play Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and you,
Oh,
you see
yeah.
that flicker, psh, done.
Yeah.
He was actually quicker than that flicker.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And I said, yeah. So Tyson changed the game, but then my coworker, sorry, Ethan, I think it was you actually. Ethan, he subscribes to the show. So yeah, Ethan, you get to see me cry. There you go. I'll give you the warning. Um, but Ethan, he said, what's that guy's name? Butterball? It's like, nah, man. I think it was Butterbean.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good name, but don't say it to
Yeah.
him.
Don't say it to him. I mean, you can say it to him, as long as you're like a long way away and you have
Yeah.
an exit strategy.
Yeah.
You know,
If you're within arm's reach, don't say it because you're going to sleep. That's just it.
yeah, oh yeah, because that shoot fight, him and Bart Gunn. I mean,
I
that was
felt bad for Bart Gunn
I
because,
did
like
too.
I said, he did exactly what they wanted. He did exactly what his boss said to do, and it's like, oh, but you knocked out the guy that we were going to push to the main event, so now we have to punish you by putting you in there with a guy who has hands the size of sledgehammer heads.
Yeah. Even though they claim, oh, it was never like that. It's like
It was absolutely like that.
it was like that.
Yeah.
You got mad at him because
Yeah.
I mean, and I could see why they would legitimately think Steve Williams, Dr. Death, would have. I could see.
Yeah.
I
And I mean,
understand that.
Dr. Death was a legitimate tough guy. He was one of my favorites growing up. But if that's who you were going to put in a main event feud with Steve Austin, then you should never have put him in the brawl for all and taken that chance on him getting hurt.
Right.
That's exactly what happened. He got knocked out.
He got hurt.
And he got hurt. So then all their plans, just got wiped out. It's like you should have just built the main event program with him and Steve Austin and not had him in the brawl for all.
Right, because he got hurt during the match
Yep.
with Bart Gunn, and that was actually part of the
Before.
reason why he lost as bad as what
Uh-huh.
you know.
Yep.
And I always felt bad for Dr. Death because of that. Well, I felt bad up until he went to WCW and was mocking Jim or helping to mock Jim Ross, and I'm like,
Yeah, no, dude.
really? I'm
Like,
like,
no. Mm-mm.
but
And him and Jim Ross were close. I mean, they
yeah,
were really
very
close.
close.
And it's like, I couldn't believe he did that.
Yeah, I mean, he really didn't say a lot, but the fact that he was there
He was
with
there.
them,
Yeah.
that
So it's
was,
like you're condoning what they're doing.
yeah, that was guilt by association without a
Yep.
doubt. I mean,
Mhm.
and but that's a couple things we've actually thought about in the past week that I'm not disparaging Jim Ross. but Jim Ross has said one thing, and we've heard from other sources that say,
Hmm.
no, don't want to get into what all we were talking about last
Yeah.
week,
Yeah.
because, ladies and gentlemen, Dwayne and I had decided before that interview we were not even going to talk about that, and then our subject started talking about that.
Yeah.
So
So it's
we,
like,
all
so
right,
it's fair game after that. I mean,
yeah,
but we weren't going to discuss it.
because we were actually talking about something totally different, and then he started talking about that. It's like, all right,
Well, all right, here we
you
go.
know, still super nice guy,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And that picture, I mean, that was, remember he said, remind me to get a
Yeah.
picture for Dwaylen.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about it being an autograph picture. I thought it was just like, okay, we're going to take another picture for
That's what
Dwaylen.
I thought. I thought he was like
So,
take a picture or something. I wasn't expecting an autograph picture, but
but
thank you very much.
yeah, so I had to make sure he spelled Dwaylen right, because he like couldn't write. I'm glad he's getting help, and especially right now. I imagine right now he's really going through a rough time
I'm
today.
sure.
Um, and I don't know. Hopefully, he is in Georgia right now at the DDP compound.
Hmm.
But I think, yeah, I don't think he has a lot of short-term memory left. Just from, yeah, I mean, just from a couple of the conversations, and I was like, because I had to leave because, uh, word to the wise, if you're ever going to a fan fest, make sure you have cash. Thankfully they had an ATM there.
That's good.
But I had to hit it twice. Well, my wife, she already knows.
I was going to say, is your wife within earshot? Because
she already knows, because she works for me. She sees the withdrawals on the bank statement,
yeah.
or on the app. Because I had to get cash out for that one,
Hmm.
and then I came back and he's like, oh yeah, that I picture. He's like, because he told the guy, he's like, hey, make sure you put in a picture. He said, give this guy for free, and I gave him a shirt, and he was very grateful for that. Hopefully he wears. I was trying to get him to take a picture holding the shirt,
Yeah.
but couldn't translate that enough. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to try to push it.
Right. Right.
But and later on, I did see the shirt was laden with his stuff.
Awesome.
And I've seen him actually post on Twitter, and it was after I'd already said I was going to give him a shirt, that, if you, one of the best things you can do if you're going to give somebody a gift, give them a shirt of your thing. That's like one of the best things to give.
Yeah.
But then when I went over there, I just got to show this again. When when this guy, the vendor, my son and I were actually talking about it. He's like, Dad, isn't it the belt you keep saying? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, see, go buy it. I'm like, no. I was like, that belt. I said, I probably can't afford it.
Yeah, but that's kids going, well, just go buy it, and it's like,
Yeah.
you have no idea how much those things cost.
Yeah, because I'm looking. He actually didn't have any price tags on this. I didn't even know if he was selling it. But like a lot, the other vendors who were also selling belts, they had their price tags on them. Wow, they're very, very proud of their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, but I told Leighton, I said that belt probably cost $500.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, how do you know? I'm like, that's the end of that's 10 pounds of gold. That's the big gold dome. I don't know why they call it the gold dome. By the way, it's silver.
Yeah.
But never got why they call it the gold dome. So finally, he's like, well, just go ask him. So I did. I was like, looking at it, he's like, I like. He's all, you like the belt? I was like, yeah. I said, is it for sale? And he said, yeah. He said, $125. I was like, do what?
Sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, you're not going to get it, any cheaper than that anywhere. I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
And I said, do you take card? He's like, cash only. I'm like, hold on. Go to my wallet. I was like, I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
And he said, okay. He said, I'll put it back for you to make sure nobody else gets it. And, I went down, hit the ATM for the second time, in half an hour.
Yeah.
And
I got that. My wife bought me this way. My wife got me that one for our anniversary a couple of years ago. So
that one right there. See?
So now I need the big gold belt, and I need the classic Intercontinental title.
The same guy actually had, it was the Intercontinental title. I want to say it was the one that replaced the belt. It either replaced the belt or I think it was the belt that Tito Santana held it, and then Greg Valentine held it.
Yes.
Because it had green leather.
Yep.
He had that one. $300
Man.
because he told me, he said, now that one was, he had an AWA belt, the AWA world title that was also, I think he was either 120, 125. He had an ECW one, which might have been the TV title. I'm not sure. But it was also about, saying 120, 125. He said, but the green leather Intercontinental title, that one was 300. He said, because the metal, he said it was actual real metal, and there was
Metal,
a
yeah.
lot of it. So
Yeah.
now this one, I mean, they called it 10 pounds of gold. It weighs probably about 7 pounds. So but I got it snapped, and I can't snap it around me because I'm too fat. But
Yeah, I can't snap mine either.
So
don't feel bad. I can't snap mine either.
So now, if I could find the Mid-Atlantic title, love that belt, always have.
Speaking of the Mid-Atlantic title, did you see the picture I sent you of the new AEW Women's World title?
Did you text it to me or did you email it?
Yeah, I texted it to you. It's been a few days ago, so you might have missed it.
Well, everything is with texting pictures. Speaking of pictures, I am going to post that one picture.
I figured I've been waiting on you to post it. I figured you were going to.
Oh, I am. Don't worry. By the way, your reaction to that was, I was like, I'd never noticed before. Now I can't unsee it. Let's see. So
I didn't say it. Like, I texted that to you, and then I showed it to Savannah, and Savannah said the same thing.
Let me see.
If you didn't get it, I'll send it to you. I can send it to you in Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, go ahead and send it to me Facebook Messenger,
Okay.
or even text it to me again. Yeah, it's fine. Whichever one you. Oh, did you send it? Did you do a Facebook Messenger?
No, I did it through text.
Okay.
Let's see. I can just send it to you again.
Yeah, just go ahead and send it to me again. That's fine. But yeah, I'd like the Mid-Atlantic title. Now, one of the things about one of the people who also met, and I want to have him on the show, and he actually did. He gave me his agent's name. And he was talking like rates. And I'm like, oh, really? Even though I'd still like to have him on the show, but at the same time, we'll have to discuss, that and see if we can actually afford it, because we ain't the Podfather. We're not Conrad Thompson,
right?
Who lives in a mansion. And people pay him to be on his show. But yeah, Sam Houston. Now, if you were to look at the picture that I posted of me and Sam Houston, which, by the way, he caught me off guard on how big he is.
Really?
Yeah.
I knew he was tall.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's about, oh, there it is. Okay. Now I just got in the picture. Oh, that is, yeah, I do remember seeing that now. That one is pretty cool.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the Mid-Atlantic heavyweight title.
Yeah, I can see that, because it's got the kind of the shapes right there in the middle. Yeah, that one is pretty. Oh, and then also off to the sides too. Yeah. Oh, that's like a globe that they took and kind of sectioned off. Okay.
Yep.
But if you look at the picture, of me and Sam Houston, for whatever reason, my son didn't want to be in the picture because we'd already tell you, he's like, I don't know who these people are.
I was going to say, he probably didn't know who Sam Houston was, so it was like,
Well, he didn't know who Kevin Sullivan was either. Yeah, and I didn't know who Andrew Anderson was, but nobody. I mean, that guy, he was super nice. Sullivan was a little temperamental, kind of seemed like, but imagine
sounds about like Kevin Sullivan.
I mean, I still wouldn't mind having him on the show.
Oh no, I'd love to have him on the show. I've just always heard that he can be a little temperamental.
I just know I know one subject I would not want to bring up, because
no.
I explained that to Leighton. He went, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah.
And
no.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, well, look it up.
Yeah.
If you don't know what we're talking about, are you really a wrestling fan if you already don't know what we're talking about?
Yeah.
And but if you want to ask us in private, we would gladly.
Absolutely.
We'll start talking like professional wrestling 101, the history of.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime, anybody that's listening, anybody that's watching us on YouTube, anytime you have any type of wrestling questions, please feel free, email, send us a message on our email, our podcast email. You can, You can DM, the podcast on Twitter, Steve on Twitter, myself. We'll be glad to talk to you about the history of wrestling. It's, what we love to talk about. So,
yeah, for like the next day, a couple days, because my daughter was also in town this weekend.
mhm.
They finally had to tell me to stop talking about wrestling. They say I associate everything with wrestling. And I actually had a girl I supervised tell me that the same thing,
I I have an ex-wife who used to tell me that too.
which one?
Notice, Christy.
Okay. I never met
Notice,
actually I never met the second one either, but she was we didn't follow each other on Facebook, but um every once in a while I'd like have some kind of interaction. And then
mhm.
all of a sudden she was no longer your wife. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, before we start talking about exes, yeah, because oddly enough, all my exes live in Texas. But yeah, weirdly enough. But I don't hang my hat in Tennessee, even though I would. I like Tennessee.
Mhm.
But anyway, back to the, if you look at the picture, Sam Houston, he's holding a title belt.
Mhm.
I always associate Sam Houston with the Mid Atlantic title.
Right.
The belt he's holding is the U.S. title.
Really?
Yes, yes.
When was
I'm like, I
was
looked
he
it
ever
up.
the United States
No,
champion?
never,
Okay, I was thinking. I could not remember.
never,
I'm usually
never,
pretty good
never.
about remembering, people's title reigns, and I do not remember Sam Houston winning the NWA US title.
I know I'm at a lot. I'm like, and then I felt bad when I was talking to Ricky Steamboat. Yeah, I just said that. I was talking to Ricky Steamboat, but I was holding the NWA World title, and I said, "Did you hold this belt?" I said, "Or did you just hold the big gold?" He said, "I just held the big gold." I was like,
Yeah.
because I wanted to get him to sign it too, but I was like, then it's like one of them. I don't know if it's like a breach of protocol, because he'd be signing a belt that he actually didn't
Right.
hold.
That he actually didn't hold. Yeah.
Right. So it's but Tommy Rich was right beside him. So Tommy Rich signed it. In the middle, he said, "Man, this pin sucks. Give me another one." um, but we still got a picture taken with Ricky Steamboat. I'm holding this
Yeah.
because I can. But but he had my son actually hold the Intercontinental belt.
That's awesome.
So Ricky Steamboat, who does not look like he's like 70 years old.
No, he does not.
JJ Dillon does not look like he's almost 80 years old.
No.
Um, now he wasn't as talkative. I mean, and I actually asked him if he'd be want to come to play. He's like, "No, I don't really do those anymore." But I did tell Tully Blanchard. I
Mhm.
said, I mean this in the most complimentary way. I said, I absolutely hated you when I was a kid. And he kind of chuckled. He's like, "Well, it means I was doing my job well." I was
Yeah.
like, I said, "You were." I said, I said, I mean, I did tell him it was a pleasure meeting him, because it really was. I mean,
Oh yeah.
um,
I would have loved it because Arn was always my favorite horseman, but after Arn, it was always Tully. Tully was
because
always like Tully was the bad guy, and
he was so good. That's why I hated
yes,
him, because he was just mean, and he always, not really. He didn't have to cheat, but he would do it. He was always beating people up, and
yeah,
he was just so good at it.
yep,
And that slingshot suplex was,
beautiful.
yeah,
Just
it really was.
yeah,
And when Buff told us last week, because he was talking about the difference between the cables and the ropes,
hmm
and he said, yeah, and he's WCW is like boom, boom, boom. You could buy. He said WWF is like burn,
yeah, yeah.
and I got to thinking about it. I've only seen one other person use a slingshot suplex, and I only saw him do it once, and that was Harley Race when he went to the WWF
Yep.
in like the mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
Um, and like the very first match I saw him in, he used a slingshot suplex, but it didn't look like it had that bounce. It was like,
Yeah.
you know,
I've seen Beth Phoenix do it, but I've only seen her do it once. And I think it was kind of like that same thing. It just you
yeah,
don't get the different, the different ropes that they use. You just don't get that same bounce. But Tully's was like just picture
yep.
perfect.
And they were also talking about that today on, I think it was Tony Schiavone's podcast, and they're about the slingshot and how you had to, or maybe it was either Tully or no, it was either Tony Schiavone's or Arn Anderson's. They said you had to get it perfect
Hmm.
or it would just look horrible. And he said
Yeah.
Tully was able to get it. Like, I mean, he was just a master
And I
at it.
mean, Tully could do it on guys that were bigger than him.
Yeah, like Ray Traylor.
Yeah, he did it on Ray Traylor. He did it on like the Masked Assassin, guys that were
Yeah.
like 300 pounds. He was hitting them with the slingshot suplex.
And I was glad to see him, what was it, a year ago when he was able to come back in and he did that on somebody.
Yeah, he had that match at AEW. Yeah,
Yep. And to me, I liked it because it gave him closure.
yeah,
Yeah, because he never had a chance to have that last match just because of, I mean, he'll admit, his own,
yeah,
his own bad decisions.
yeah.
And, but I mean,
He
obviously,
had,
he's cleaned up his life now too.
yep, he had some demons too, but he's gotten everything straight. I don't know what's going on with him now because he got fired by FTR on Dynamite on Wednesday. So I don't know what's going on there.
I can tell you, and I have proof of it. He's doing appearances at fan fests. I have picture proof of that. He's standing, to my left going.
Yep.
And JJ is, the other
symbol
side
of excellence.
Yep. And Barry Windham was actually Tully and JJ were together. Barry was like down there, but they did do a photo op, the three of them.
Yeah.
Just like I did the NWO photo op. They had some other ones. They had the Steiner brothers because both Rick and Scott Steiner were there, had their own separate booths, but then at one point they came together and did that. Ron Simmons was there. I give you one word what his shirt said.
Oh, I already know.
But you got to do it in the right voice. Damn.
Yeah.
And my son said, why do you keep saying, and then he looked at his shirt. He's like, why does he have that on his shirt? I was like, that was his catchphrase. He's like, can I say it? No.
It's like, no, you can't say
it. You're 11. Yeah. It's bad enough he got in trouble the other night. He was playing a Switch in his room, and all of a sudden my wife heard him go, oh, shh. And she walked in there and he said, it was an accident. She's like, no. She's like, it sounds like you know how to say that. So, but anyway, I'm trying to think if there was any other news. I watched half the pay-per-view, by the way. I've gotten through the CM Punk MJF dog collar match. Man, that match is brutal.
That match was brutal, but it was great.
Yeah.
That may be the best feud that AEW's ever done. I mean, everything was done perfectly. That match was done perfectly. CM Punk doing his old Ring of Honor entrance.
Yep.
Even his old gear with the the shorts and everything, just fantastic. But that whole pay-per-view is great.
Ooh. And it's kind of funny. You mentioned the email address a while ago. Kind of coming to the end because I can't think of a lot more going on right now. Because if I get to think about any more, I'll probably start getting emotional again. I'd rather not do that.
Yeah.
But I want to say, if anybody wants to email us and tell me what a crybaby I am, you can email us at armchairbookingpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/armchairbookingpodcast. You can find us on Instagram also at armchairbookingpodcast. You can find us on Twitter at bookingarmchair. You can find us on TikTok at armchair booking. And you can also, obviously, if you're watching us on video, you already know we're on YouTube, but you can find us on just about any audio platform that there is. iHeartRadio, you still suck. Just had to throw it out there.
Yeah.
Other people had the same issues with them we had. They just stopped uploading. Didn't say a word. They just contacted them. Hey, something's going on.
The worst part is that they're not making any attempt to fix the issue.
They're like, oh yeah, it's not uploading. Well, no crap. That's why I contacted you. Your tech support.
Yeah.
Anyway, and as usual, we're hosted by Block Talk Radio. And you can always, like I said, in Twitter, you can find us at Booking Armchair. You can also find Twitter at fat_daddy73. And I also have a personal Twitter. I actually keep my personal Twitter, though I actually keep it out of it because that's one I don't really post. I'd do more of a share. Like really, it's like on Fridays they'll do the Remember Everyone Deployed, and so that one's more like, kind of political, kind of military, kind of thing. Even though you tag me in that one all the time for wrestling stuff, but I'm like, whatever. But I do want to give a shout out to some other people. Obviously, Jay and Trey.
Yep.
Because those guys are awesome. Courtney, is Courtney on your Facebook? Courtney
I don't think so. I've got to add her.
Okay. she has a very good post she did recently, and I'll let you see it first because I don't want to just kind of, I guess, spoil it. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, you'll see it and you go, oh, okay, yeah, she is one of the nicest people you could ever meet, and she's had some struggles. Let's put it like that.
Okay. Okay.
Not drug struggles, but
Right.
just some stuff, and she's um very open about it. She said, "I'm not ashamed,"
Right.
but you know, you'll see what I'm talking about. But but yeah, Jay and Trey, they have been absolutely fantastic with us. Justin, Trey, and Jake, all three of them. I did not get a chance to see them this weekend, and
Hmm.
actually, Justin he didn't go either because he had his daughters, and they went to go watch um, the Cincinnati Cyclones play hockey,
Okay.
and he had to go. He's like wrestling in Ludlow at the Ludlow Theater, or watch the hockey game with and he's like, yeah, even though eh, the NWF is a family friendly thing, the Ludlow Theater gets wild,
Yeah. Right.
and it's basically a bar with the wrestling ring. I mean, and
Yeah.
the atmosphere is off the charts. I mean, it's one of the most electric places you could ever have a match in. But he said probably not the best place to take his daughters. I was like,
Right. Right.
so he went and watched the Cyclones game. It's like, hey, cool. Um, but if you notice the shirt that I'm wearing, it's actually not a wrestling shirt. This is the True Crime Cast. They are a true crime podcast. They also have another podcast called Bless Their Hearts, which uh, thankfully, yeah, I have my dirty clothes right beside me. It's another. They same guys who do the Bless Their Hearts podcast. Is also the another good one. The True Crime Cast obviously is true crime. They do cover a lot of cases. I've actually contributed a couple of the cases that they've done. Um, and you can find their Twitter at, I think it's at True Crimecast Pod. You can also find it at Bless Our Hearts Pod. The Bless Our Hearts is just kind of more random subjects. It's their way of doing stuff beyond crime.
Right.
Because once you get think about crime all the time, it can really mess with you. So they
Yeah.
know that. But in fact, I actually sent Jamie, one of the hosts, I actually sent him a message right before we started recording, and just say, hey, I sent him a picture and say, hey, I'm repping your podcast, and uh, he was very appreciative of that. And to tell you how big their podcast is getting, they have been on Jericho twice, and they're about to be on there again.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
and they've had Jericho on, so they know Jericho,
Yeah.
which I think is really cool. Now I wonder if we can get Jericho.
Yeah.
I'd love to have Jericho on the show.
Yeah.
Um, because Jericho is, I mean, he's one of my favorites right now. Um, not just because of wrestling, because the man really he does do it all, and he does it all well.
Yeah. He really does.
So and from what I understand, pretty nice guy. I know some people said, "Oh, he gets in fights with people." No, if you get in his face, yeah, he's going to get, he's going to
Yeah.
tell you to get out of his face. But he's also very fearless, and but I'd love to. He's one of the ones I'd love to meet. So, but I don't think I have anything else.
No, I think that's it. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about on Thursday because
Yep.
we got Dynamite tomorrow. Plus,
Hmm.
the wrestling world is always moving.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if WWE pulls the trigger and has Cody show up on Raw tonight
Uh.
because they're in Jacksonville.
No.
Yeah, that's
You know what?
AEW.
If they have, they've probably already done it, but I don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then
I don't know either
again,
because my phone's been on the charger, so I hadn't
I mean,
seen any Twitter notifications or anything.
well,
Because
um,
tonight would be the time to do it. Because if
yeah.
not, then they're going to have to hold off until after WrestleMania. But
Let me see. All I have to do is, of course, we already know what. One of the hashtags, Cody Rhodes. Seth Rollins to close Raw, Cody Rhodes to be involved. Dave Meltzer with a Cody. Never mind. I'm not even going to bother with Dave Meltzer's updates. And I'm not saying anything against Dave Meltzer, but he's not always correct.
right, I'll just wait and check Twitter once we're done.
You know what? There's nothing official. They're all saying rumors are floating around. The rumors have been floating around now for 2 weeks.
Yeah, but before we go, tonight would be the perfect time to do it. If if they're going to throw a shot at AEW, this is the best way to do it. We're going to come in your backyard, sign your former EVP and one of the building blocks of your company, and have him walk out on our show.
Yeah. I mean, and actually Jericho was on Kurt Angle's show, and they were actually talking about Cody a little bit. And Jericho, I mean, he has all the respect in the world for Cody, you know. But yeah, that's another one. Listen to Kurt Angle's show with Jericho. Actually, I showed Kurt Angle. I said, hey, because he was actually wearing his podcast shirt. And I said, yeah, I said, I love your show. I said, by the way, this is my podcast. And he looked at me and said, oh, armchair booking. Oh, okay. The way he said that, I was like, all right. And I'm also looking at his neck going, how did somebody break that neck?
Yeah.
I mean,
and he's broke it twice.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, he used to be self-conscious about it. I was like, man, I wish I had a neck like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to everybody, and definitely keep the friends and family of Scott Hall in your prayers. I mean, because this was
absolutely
a big, we've been waiting for this basically, like not waiting for, but
afraid of this.
All day long.
Yeah.
I mean, literally all day long.
Yeah.
And started with Kevin Nash, what he posted.
Yeah.
And then of course, I mean, and like I texted Dwaylen earlier, he said, they took him off life support, but he was still going. I mean, that was 4 hours.
Yeah.
He was still alive. And I said, we'll prepare for the worst, but we're going to hope for the best. I said, he's still with us. And I said, and then of course, right before the show starts, but definitely, we want to, wish our best wishes, our condolences to his friends and family.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we lost as fans. They lost a lot more.
Absolutely. Yep. So, they lost a whole lot more.
Yep. So, but until we can, until we meet again, God bless.
God bless.